Welcome to this visual summary of the Cuebid Guide on Application Security. This video walks you through the guide on a high level so that you quickly can get an overview of the content and the key highlights from the guide. Make sure you download the complete guide for a deeper understanding of application security and how strengthening it can help you sleep better at night.
All right, let's jump right in. Here's what we're going to cover. First up, we'll look at what the new attack surface actually means. Then, we'll get into how attackers are basically walking in the front door. After that, we'll talk about moving from simple defense to real resilience. And we'll wrap it all up by talking about how to secure your digital core. Okay, so let's start with a really big idea. In today's world, your application isn't just part of your business. For a lot of companies, it is the business. It's the storefront, the back office, the cash register, all rolled into one. It's where you meet customers, process data, and, make money.
And that means the way we think about security has to change, big time. The old way was all about the perimeter, building a big fortress wall around your network. But today, the new focus has to be on the application itself. It's not enough to check who's knocking on the gate. You have to understand the business logic happening inside those walls.
This right here really gets to the heart of it. Think about a bank. You need security guards at the door, for sure. But is that all? Of course not. You also need rules and controls for what happens at the teller's window, right? You have to protect the transactions themselves. That's exactly what application security is all about. So how do attackers actually get in? Well, here's the thing. They don't bother trying to break down the walls anymore. Why would they? The front door is designed to be open for business. So they just walk right through it, using the app's own features against it. And the absolute #1 way they do this is with something called broken access control. This is the most common vulnerability out there. It's when a user logs in perfectly fine, they've got the right credentials, but once they're inside, the system doesn't properly check what they should and shouldn't be allowed to see or do.
Here's a great way to think about it. Imagine you give someone a key card that's supposed to get them into the lobby, but whoops, it also happens to unlock the manager's office and the server room and even the vault. See, the person didn't have to pick a lock or break a window. The system just let them in. The login was fine, the permissions were broken. All right, next up we have code injection. This is a classic, but it's still incredibly effective. It's all about tricking the application into running a malicious command because it thinks that command is just normal user data. It basically comes down to the system trusting user input way too much.
Let's go back to our bank analogy. Imagine you're filling out a standard withdrawal slip, but in the memo line, you write a little hidden note that says, "And by the way, print out a list of all customer account balances." A human teller would just laugh, right? But a poorly designed computer system might just follow that instruction blindly. That's an injection attack.
Now, this next one is a little more subtle. It's called insecure design. And this is tricky because there are no bugs. The code is running perfectly, exactly as intended. The problem is that the design itself has a flaw in its business logic that can be abused. A perfect example. Let's say you have a marketing campaign where you give a bonus for every friend someone refers, and the system works flawlessly. Every referral gets a bonus. But nobody thought to put a limit on it. So an attacker can just write a script to create thousands of fake accounts and drain your entire campaign budget. The system wasn't hacked. Its own logic was just exploited on a massive scale.
Last but not least, let's talk about APIs. APIs are basically the glue of the modern internet. They let all our different apps and systems talk to each other at lightning speed. But that incredible efficiency can also become a huge risk if they're not locked down properly. An API is kind of like the high-speed loading dock behind the bank. It's not for customers, it's for huge, efficient transfers. And to use it, you need a special passkey, an API key. Well, what happens if an attacker steals that key? They get to bypass the lobby, the tellers, everything, and get direct, high-speed access straight to your core systems.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the problems. Let's shift gears and talk about solutions. The goal today isn't just about building higher walls. It's about changing our mindset from static defense to active digital resilience. It's about building a shield that can actually adapt.
And that really brings us to the core question that every leader should be asking their teams. Can we tell the difference? Can we spot when an action looks totally legitimate? It's a valid user, they have the right key, but they're using it in a completely abnormal way. That's the real challenge.
The modern answer to that question is a new type of solution, an application delivery and security platform, or ADSP.
Think of it as a single, intelligent shield that sits in front of your apps. It combines things like a web application firewall and API security with a brain, behavioral analysis, that can actually understand context and spot that misuse as it happens.
So building this kind of resilience really comes down to 3 pillars. First, you protect. You do everything you can to minimize the attack surface. Second, you detect. You have to be able to spot that weird behavior in real time, not days later. And third, you need a plan to handle it. You need a methodical response when something does happen. It's a continuous cycle.
And that brings us to our final and maybe most important point. When you do this right, application security isn't some roadblock that slows down innovation. It's actually the opposite. It's a business enabler. It gives you the confidence you need to move fast and grow safely.
So let's wrap up with this thought. The debate is over. Your applications have to be open and accessible. That's just how business works now. The real question, the one we all need to focus on, is how do we make sure that once someone's inside, they can only use those applications in exactly the right way? That's the key.
To get started or continue your cybersecurity journey, reach out to Cuebid, your expert partner in communication, data center, and security operations. Together, we help you build cybersecurity from the ground up.
Thank you for watching, and don't forget to download the complete guide at cuebid.se, available in our Knowledge Hub.